All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Kelly. I'm the program coordinator here at the Rochester Hills Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to this evening's program, Tackling the Tough Questions About Aging with Navigate Home. Now, before we get started, I would like to say our next program will be coming up quite a ways from today. It is Thursday, February 10th, and that is an evening with Frederick Douglass. That's going to be a Zoom program. If you are interested in signing up for that program, you can do so at calendar.rhpl.org. As for tonight, we do ask audience members, please silence your phones or turn them off before we get started, just to avoid any unnecessary audio disruptions. And the program tonight is also being recorded. It should be available on the library's YouTube page in about 1 week from tonight, and then should shortly thereafter be available on the library's website at rhpl.org. With all of that said, I would like to first introduce, so we can get our program started, Valerie Mcbain. Valerie?
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening and braving the cold January night. And thank you, if you're watching virtually, for joining us. My name is Valerie Mcbain. I'm a realtor with Century 21 Sackmar & Associates based here in downtown Rochester. And along with my partner, Kim Russell, who's a member of a panel here, we are co-founders of Navigate Home. So what is Navigate Home? Navigate Home is a network of trusted professionals whose focus is in educating, advocating, and protecting our senior adults and their loved ones. So as we're aging, we hope we're aging well, right? But we know in a blink of an eye, things can change. An accident, an injury, illness, or any other factor that's beyond our control, right? So when that happens, we find ourselves in a crisis situation. And we have to make decisions, and we have questions, and we don't know who to call or who to ask for help on things. And we're overwhelmed and maybe a little frightened by the changes that we're experiencing. So Kim and I were finding out that our clients were struggling. They were feeling this overwhelming need. And we thought, how can we help? We thought, what if we did the work for you? What if we did the interviewing and the vetting of professionals? And what we've done is we've created a collection, and these members here on our panel are just some of the few that are a part of Navigate Home. And these are people that we trust to even our loved ones, even put them in front of our own families. So we feel confident in presenting them to you as well. And that's just one aspect of Navigate Home. The second aspect is why we're here tonight, for education. We want to help you plan and prepare for those sudden changes in our lives that might happen. And wouldn't it be a gift to give to our loved ones if they know that we've taken the time to make the choices and the decisions, and so they know they can honor our choices and decisions based on what we did. So there's a bunch of tough questions that we need to ask. And I've got a group of panelists here that can really help us with these questions. And Connie Mercer from WIMS Insurance is going to be our moderator, and she's going to go through the program with us. And thank you, Connie, for being a trusted professional in our community with insurance.
So. You're most welcome. Thanks, Valerie. Uh-oh. I'm falling apart already. Well, thank you all, again, as Valerie said, for coming out on this cold evening and braving everything that you've braved to participate. So this evening, why don't we introduce our panel? Shall we start here on our left? Kim Russell. Kim is a placement specialist and she intends to walk alongside families to ensure that the transitional need that a family requires is met with compassion and attention and respect. She is a member of Next Steps for Seniors. Her fee is covered by the facility once there is a signed lease, and the services which she offers is provided at no cost to families. Sitting next to Kim is Jerry Aciola. He's a general manager of CAPS Remodeling. He's going to laugh and correct this mispronunciation of his name. CAPS is providing barrier-free home modifications, and durable medical equipment for elders and those with mobility challenges for over 15 years. So we'll go down here to Mr. Rakowski. Mike is with Rakowski Law, and their promise to the community is a custom, comprehensive asset protection or an estate plan backed by a lifetime and beyond of education and support. We're glad you're here, Mike.
Thank you.
Next to Mike is Belinda A. Leo, and she is with Medicare Choices. Belinda is able to educate customers on the ins and outs of navigating Medicare. I'm proud of you for being here after open enrollment. You have to be pretty stunned. Making sure that her customers are educated and comfortable with their decisions based on health and finances. And then Xenia Waltman. Xenia is with Rochester Wealth Strategies. Rochester Wealth Strategies will provide a conservative and comprehensive approach coupled with an exceptional level of service and integrity as to what supports the ambitions of their customers and to establish long-lasting relationships which can span generations. So that's really our panel this evening, and our intent would be to have really a question and answer opportunity. These are the panelists that are with us as far as members this evening. We're going to solicit the assistance of John. John, would you like to wave at everyone? John's going to be our runner, just like on debate team. Within your folders that you received when you registered this evening, you will find a question card. So the intent really is to complete that question card so that your panelist up here can answer those questions and address your concerns. I had a professor that once said, if you don't ask the question, you're not going to find the answer. And it's probably a question that the individual in the next pew is also waiting to ask. So please do let us field your questions. Also in your pamphlet, you will find all of the members of our Navigate Home. The knowledge areas are shown on the back of this pamphlet, and it will really give you a in-depth introduction as to the various aspects that our membership can lend on your path for proper decision making. Also, there are some, in our knowledge, we call them knowledge areas. There are questions, and it basically is entitled Tackling the Tough Questions About Aging. Hopefully you came equipped this evening with your own questions. There is a sheet for taking notes. We encourage you to do so. There will be a quiz. And then especially, if you will, please give us your comments so that we know how we can improve, so that our panelists are able to really direct your concerns and address those issues. So this evening, why don't I encourage each of you to hear from a member of our panel, and it will give you an idea of, we have had these previous meetings, and there were some prior questions that were addressed. So why don't we address those now? And I'll ask Jerry. Jerry, one of the questions that had been posed by a member of our audience, when do you know it's time to start looking into home safety modifications?
Good question. Thank you for all coming tonight. It's sometimes it's a tough question to answer because a lot of people are a little bit, there's pride involved in that. And I think you really realize it's time when you start witnessing a loved one or a family member, struggling with their mobility. A lot of times there are really simple signs of people watching them grab onto things as they're navigating their way through a kitchen, or, they're grabbing the backs of chairs or hanging on to anything they can get their hands on. And a lot of it could be simply, a vision issue, a mobility challenge, a strength of legs, things like that. And even just this past holiday season, when you have relatives over on a fairly regular basis, you start to, notice these things. And a lot of times the initial comment or observation comes from a family member. And sometimes that family member could be a granddaughter, a son, daughter, that kind of thing. The people who are older don't realize this because they've been navigating this way, and it's been kind of gradually building up. But it always takes, usually it starts with a conversation with a loved one that will say, hey, we're noticing that mom or dad or, so and so in the family isn't able to kind of get around the house as easy as before. So, it's usually a conversation in with the family. Even yourselves, you may notice at some point in time that, navigating those stairs to get down to the laundry room or simple tasks are no longer simple. So I think it's a lot of it's like intuition within yourself to realize that it might be time to talk about these things. And then the other thing I always say to people is, a lot of times proactive changes to your homes. I mean, it may be a pride thing that you don't want to put the grab bar in the bathroom, but everybody knows that the probability of slipping on a tile floor, getting out of your tub, which used to be a fairly easy task, can sometimes be tricky. And just a simple grab bar installation could avoid a trip to the hospital or a hip injury or that kind of thing. And the cost of rehabbing and medical bills and that sort of thing are way more expensive than some of these modifications are. So a lot of it is your own intuition, and then maybe listening to family members that make these observations and taking that proactive step to be able to accommodate your own wishes to want to stay in your home as long as you want.
So am I understanding then that CAPS will come out and assist in making all of those modifications?
Yes, a lot of times it starts with a simple phone call to our office. We usually listen to what the need is. We do full home consultations. We'll go out and do a walkthrough. We observe how people use their homes, what the areas of the homes they use the most, whether it's the kitchen, the laundry room. And then we'll make simple, recommendations. And then, you don't have to do everything at once, but we tend to focus on the things that are in need in the immediate term most, where you use the home. And every customer is different, so we realize there's no cookie cutter approach to dealing with customers. We literally do an in-home consultation, and a lot of the stuff, questions can be answered even over the phone too. So it's not like always a complicated thing. But it's just usually starting the dialogue and coming up with the best solutions.
Thank you, Jerry. Mm-hmm. So let's turn to Mike. Mike, this was a question posed at a prior meeting, and the question would be, are you recommending any estate planning techniques to clients if and when the estate tax exemption is reduced?
Well, that's a really, can everyone hear me on this microphone? That's a really good and difficult question right now, but we can tackle kind of what that means. Currently, if someone were to pass away, we have there's federal tax and a state tax, and state tax that we need to look at. Luckily in Michigan, there's no state tax when transferring wealth from one generation to the next. The federal limit right now is $11 million for an individual or $22 million for a married couple. So if anyone has more than $22 million in the room, I'll meet you outside and we can have a conversation, right? So it doesn't really, just joking, obviously, but it doesn't really affect a large percent of the population. But here's where this is changing, and we could all probably see this coming. The rule that is in place right now that set the exemption that high will sunset in just a couple years. That'll take it back down to less than half of what it currently is. We don't know what that's going to be. That's kind of just the guess at the moment of what that is. So that would take it down from 22 million down to 11 or 6 million. So that's still a pretty high amount. But as we can maybe guess, we've, as a country, given out a lot of money lately, and we need to come up with ways to get that back. And so in the past, they've used the estate tax as one mechanism of getting tax dollars back in their pocket, right? And so we won't go into the politics of it all, but there are planning strategies that we can utilize to proactively reduce our taxable estate. And so what that means on the estate planning side, and this is really something that we would partner with Rochester Wealth Strategies or anyone on Zena's team to help with, is it's a very holistic strategy. There's a lot of different ways you can approach reducing your tax liability. From the estate planning side, though, we can use certain types of trusts. There's irrevocable trusts that we can use to take assets outside of the taxable estate, essentially reducing what you would owe in taxes when transferring to the next generation. The problem becomes when we start doing that kind of advanced planning. The IRS, as you can imagine, has very strict rules when it comes to this. And so these are those kind of scarier irrevocable trusts where when you give away the asset to this trust, you probably won't have access to the asset anymore, and you'll have to set at the time who the beneficiaries are, who those successor trustees are. Those trustees have to be someone other than yourself. In compared to a revocable living trust where we're trying to do things like avoid the probate process, where you maintain complete control and you're the trustee of the trust. So usually there's a little bit more complication in doing those kinds of things. You can appoint other third-party individuals that you know and trust to be those people involved. So the short answer is there are ways to reduce the taxable estate if there's a tax problem, but usually that's a very holistic plan between a financial planner, an estate planner, and probably some type of CPA. Would you probably agree with that? So there are a lot of solutions out there to do this. It's just having the right team on your side to get it done is the important thing. I hope
Thank
that
you,
answered
Mike.
the question.
I guess that's why we have to hire you, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Might we go then to Kim? Kim with Next Step for Seniors. Kim, our prior question was, what placement options are out there for my aging parents?
Thank you, Connie. So there's many different options, and I just want to say, part of tackling these questions like Jerry was talking about is how do you approach your loved one? Because that is the hardest thing. So like in Jerry's situation, I'm going off script here a little bit, but I would say one of the things that we did for our mom is we gave it to her as a gift. Like we put all the grab bars up, and so she knew that she needed them, but it was easy because it was a gift, so there wasn't any coming back and forth. So, that's one way of tackling it. The other way of tackling some of these tough questions is asking the aunt to say, you know what, or someone that's in that same age, I'm looking at such and such. Do you want to look with me? So, and that's one of the approaches that I use when you're looking for a different place. You have your family home, and everyone wants to stay in their home. I want to stay in my home, but sometimes it's not possible. If you have a large home and your spouse or your family has moved out, your bedrooms or bathrooms are a different story, you can no longer walk up those stairs, it becomes a problem. I'm helping a family right now where the mother, they're just kind of giving a bird bath. The medications aren't getting distributed right. So those are signs that there's options to have really a socialized environment where they can really still thrive in this season of life. And so there's different kinds of, if you have memory care issues, maybe we're looking at memory care, but maybe it's just assisted living with some assistance. So memory care really, when you're looking at that option, is if they're wandering or if they're combative, then we really have to go into the memory care arena. Otherwise, you could really go into the arena of assisted living. Then there's the arena of independent living, where you're doing all kinds of activities. You can still drive. You can do even in assisted living, you can do anything that you normally would do. You're just getting that assistance, and you're getting a couple of meals provided for you for the day. You're getting linen service. You're getting housekeeping, because those are the things that are really tough for people to tackle if they're struggling with their health. So there's also one of the things called AFC, which is adult foster care. People get afraid of that, But if I have a client that I just placed, all their family's in Colorado, and he wants to be more in a home environment. So he's got 5 other people with him. They have their own living room, kitchen. They share that together, their own bedroom. And so that's an environment where they're still in a home that they feel really comfortable with, but they also have the caregiver ratio is phenomenal. So if they really need help with their insulin or their medication or that type of thing, that's a good option. So there's memory care, there's assisted living, there's independent living, and then there's an AFC, which is adult foster care.
Lots to know.
Lots to know.
I'm glad that you're on our resource, and she can give us all that direction. Thank you very much. So how about Belinda? Belinda is with Medicare Choices. And Belinda, one of the prior questions, because I haven't had to have John go and fetch any questions from you in the audience here. So, there you go, John. Ask and he shall receive. Belinda, one of the prior questions was, what is the difference between Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement?
Okay, thank you. A Medicare Supplement works with your original Medicare card. So your original Medicare card covers 80% of your costs. Then you would purchase a Medicare Supplement that would cover the other 20%. And most plans today have a small deductible. This year it's $233, and that's called the Part B deductible. Then at that point, when you go to your doctor, you would give your Medicare card, your supplemental card. Once you've paid the small deductible at the beginning of the year or whenever you use services, everything else for the rest of the year will be paid for. It's, I would say, the best coverage there is out there for someone. It is also the most expensive coverage. Then the other option would be to take a Medicare Advantage, and that is typically an HMO or a PPO. It's a managed care plan. So what they do is they take your Medicare Part A, which is hospital, Part B, which is all your other medical services, and Part D, which is the prescription drugs, put it all in one plan. It would be an HMO or a PPO. The person would have to stay with have doctors in a network with the plan that they choose. Back to the Medicare Supplement. Once you elect a Medicare Supplement, you also need to pick out a standalone prescription drug plan to make sure that you're covered for all prescription drugs. And if you don't do that, there is a penalty involved if you do not elect a prescription drug plan, either when you're first turning 65 or when you lose credible coverage through your employer's health care. So you have a short window of time where you do need to apply and get a prescription drug plan, whether it be through Medicare Advantage or a standalone.
Okay. Very good. So a follow-up question to that. How early or ideally should I research my coverage availability and what my choices would be?
Well, typically what we do is when you're turning 65, if you're a person who is going to elect Medicare right at 65, then we would meet with you approximately 3 months prior to the month of your 65th birthday. And we spend probably close to hour and a half, 2 hours with an individual and go over all the options for Medicare to make sure that you're clear on what your choices are and what is best for you based on, number one, your finances, and number two, your health.
Perfect.
IRMA is the income-related adjustment, which people who have a higher income they are affected by IRMA by getting a rise in their Part B premium. So when you get the Medicare card, Part A comes to you at no cost, as long as you've put 10 years of work or credits in. Part B, however, once you elect your Part B, you are going to pay the Part B premium every month. It typically comes out of your Social Security. If you're not drawing Social Security, you'll be billed quarterly for that premium. This year, the premium in 2022 is $170.10 a month. However, if the government does a 2-year look back of your income, so your income for 2020 for a single person, if it's above close to $90,000 a year, you're going to pay an income-related adjustment for Part B and also Part D when you pick up your drug plan. So you would get a double whammy there. And I can give you a chart that shows you, based on income, whether you're single or married filing jointly, what the income guidelines are. I have had self-employed people who have retired, who continue to work at 65. However, they're taking their Medicare because it's cheaper than them paying for individual health insurance, but they're paying quite a bit in the Part B premium.
All right, thank you for that. We appreciate it. Before we go you may. How can we go about getting that chart?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the chart being available, and so how can we follow up? Should we talk to you afterwards or something to get our name on a list?
I may have one with me, or I'll get you one.
We're on the survey if you want. Put down that you would like that chart.
Possibly share your email, and then we'll send it to you via email. Look for an email from Belinda. Okay? Before we go too much further, Jerry, a follow-up question, a tag, if you will. In regard to a home safety evaluation, is there a cost for that? And second part of that question, do you need a doctor's referral?
Also good questions. No, there is not a cost for a home walkthrough consultation on checking for safety. When it comes to medically related things, we would suggest working with somebody who is a medical professional, like an occupational therapist, or somebody who has been working with whoever's condition is that we're trying to find the solutions for. That's typically what we do when we go in. We'll try to coordinate the walkthrough with an occupational therapist of the choice of the individual who has the condition. But we do a lot of walkthroughs that are just standard walkthroughs without, just general addressing, needs, listening to the customer, figuring out, again, usage of the home and come up with solutions during that walkthrough. And no, there is not a cost for us to do a walkthrough with any family or a family member.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. Mm-hmm. So Xenia, we've kept you, and we apologize and thank you for being so patient. Xenia, if I'm already retired, why do I need a financial plan?
All right, can you hear me? For good or bad? So financial planning, a lot of people do consider it to be, okay, I want to get to retirement. This is how much I'm going to need to live this lifestyle and move on. But that's one component of the financial plan. So the one thing I say with every client is that it's fluid. What is going on today may not be the same a year from now, 5 years from now, or down the road. So as life changes, we want to be able to plan accordingly. And there, again, in retirement, there are many more considerations to consider. So we talked a bit about tax changes. There might be legacy planning. There may be long-term care, medical costs, things that come up that aren't expected. So looking at that as a whole, working with our partners to make sure that we're finding the best strategy with our clients is a priority. So it doesn't mean that we're still trying to accumulate assets to get you to retirement. We're trying to protect and conserve and work for the next generation as well.
Great. Thank you, Xenia. So a follow-up question for you, Mike. Yes. Would you address POAs or power of attorney in regard to having one for one another if we're a marital unit?
Sure, absolutely. So the question relates to powers of attorneys, power of attorney documents. There's typically two, and each person, even a married couple, has their own. So this is something that governs in period of incapacity when you can no longer make decisions for yourself. Who's going to be the person making those important decisions for you? And so there's a medical power of attorney and a financial power of attorney. Each cover different things. A financial power of attorney can cover anything from, someone called the utility company and set up the gas and electric bill. It wasn't typically both people. In a married couple, one or the other called, and now it's under that person's name. If that person can no longer make decisions because they're either, as part of the aging process now just unable to make decisions for themselves, or something unexpected like a car accident, whatever the case may be, and they can no longer make decisions, there's nothing you can do about the utility bill because it's under one of the names. It's not automatic because you're married to someone that you can talk to someone about someone's IRA or their financial accounts. So a financial power of attorney covers anything from those basic things like utilities, cell phone bills, to important stuff like being able to sell a home. If one person's incapacitated and it's in both people's names of a married couple and that person can no longer sign, we have to go to court and get someone appointed as that guardian. The spouse would get appointed as that guardian to make these financial decisions for a person. So it's not automatic that a spouse could make those decisions. And then you can appoint people in a couple different ways. You can appoint people in successive order, meaning spouse first, and maybe you have a couple kids, one kid first and then the next. Or you can appoint people jointly, meaning they can both act together. So that's a couple ways to do it. Within the healthcare power of attorney, this is related to anything from being able to go pick up prescriptions to something called your living will, which is your end-of-life decisions if ever in a coma or a vegetative state. Obviously, that covers a wide range of medical things, but the people you appoint in that document will make those decisions for you if you can't. One important thing to just remember on these documents is that when someone passes away, we're no longer using the power of attorney documents. Now we're on to the who gets an individual stuff, and that's wills, trusts, those kinds of things. We see a lot of families try to use powers of attorney after the fact, and they no longer work. I hope that answered that question. The question was, is that a patient advocate? And so there's a lot of different terms for these documents. Each state calls them different things. So for instance, in Michigan, it's called the healthcare power of attorney. Also, it's known as the patient advocate designation. It's also known as a healthcare proxy. And so all of these things are the same document. They just are, over time, the name has changed. Different states call them different things. Great question.
Like the medical directive is that?
Same, a medical directive, same thing, same thing. So her question relates to a portion of this document called the living will. The living will is that section that you get to spell out what decisions you want to make, like I don't want CPR, or I don't want a respirator, or those kinds of decisions if ever in a terminal condition, vegetative state, irreversible coma, that kind of thing. Great question on that.
All right, thank you. All right, I would like you all to stand and stretch. Okay, good. Okay. All right, good. Okay. Well done. All right. And if you have any more questions, please do fill out your card and let us address those. So let's go on to the next question. And I'm thinking that maybe this is best directed to Kim with Next Step for Seniors. Kim, what kind of an alerting system would be recommended for a still fully functioning senior who wants to continue living alone in their own home?
That's a great question. So there's all different kinds of devices that you can have, even like Fitbits. You can have medical alerts even in the shower on your person. So there's all different kinds of things. Even Alexa right now has something that's available that they could call out for help, which is, I mean, the thing is, like, when you have like a necklace and if they take it off and then they fall in the hallway, then it's no good, right? So having something with technology attached to it, as long as your loved one can handle that technology. So that's really the key thing. There's also devices that if they fall, there would be an alert. There's devices that could go to 911 that would call the fire department, emergency, that type of thing. There's also different kinds of cameras so that loved ones can see, their aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, whoever, to making sure that they're eating in the kitchen. One of my families, what we came up with a plan is to have Alexa on the kitchen table because Mom and Dad were really struggling with some memory issues. They had caregivers coming in. And when you have caregivers coming in, you just want to make sure that everything is on the up and up. So every dinner time at 5 o'clock, she would call. They didn't even know that she was calling, but the device would be on the table. They would start talking with them. They also have a device that's set up for medications. So it's a box that you can set up for the whole week or the month, and it actually gives you an alarm, and the little box pops out so that the loved one can take medication. That's one of the issues that we have for our loved ones, is they're not taking their medication regularly, and it could be very devastating to them. So that's one of the signs that they really need some more help. I don't know if that answered the question.
Is that good?
Is there something specific? I mean, there's so many medical devices out there. It's, it's like saying which kind of car. I mean, there are just so many out there. But if you want to talk specifics, I'll be more than happy to. Absolutely do something, especially if you have concerns. And the thing is, you don't want to change anybody's lifestyle significantly. So I know my husband and I, when our son turned 30, he loved NASCAR. So we went to this, he was able to, go to training, go to NASCAR, and it was super, super cool. And one of the things that they told us was about the steering wheel. And it was really a great life lesson. So when you're doing a steering wheel, when you're driving, you're just making small corrections the whole time you're driving. Same thing with life. You want to continue to make those small corrections, because if you make a big correction, you're going to go in a tailspin. So with your loved ones, with ourselves, I mean, my husband and I we're looking at redoing our bathroom. We want to make it handicap accessible, just because if we're doing that, we might as well be looking down in the future to prepare. So those are the little adjustments that we want to make. So absolutely having something in the home or something. And I think the waterproof watches are the best if people don't mind having something on there. A necklace, people take off too often. So hope that helped.
Thank you, Kim.
Yes, that's an excellent solution.
Thanks for that suggestion. So there was a question from the audience, and that question is, mention, if you would, or discuss caregivers that would participate in one's home, and how do we suggest finding those individuals? So on our Meet the Team, there is a member by the name of George. with worldwide home health care. That is exactly what George's business does. He charges per hour, and I want to say that the minimum is a 4-hour shift. I'm going by memory here. Correct me, panel. If
Can I address that real quick?
Sure, address it.
So home care is fantastic. That's how you can keep, maintaining your independence. Typically, it's 4 hours twice a week. The average right now is $30 an hour. So caregiving at the home, can get very expensive. One of the reasons why we love George is he is privately owned. It's not a franchise, which is extremely important because he can vet out his own people, because these caregivers that are coming into your home, you want some kind of consistency, and you want someone that's been vetted so that there's no issues with your loved ones and all the things that go around with having a stranger come in your home. So with George, even if you're at low income, there's ways that he can really tailor that home care to the specific family. So let's just say you needed that person, and George is probably going to kill me for this, but 2 hours, 5 days a week, then he can tailor it. So Valerie and I really vet out, the people that are on this team. And that's one of the reasons why we love George. The other thing that's really important about George is if your loved ones speak their English is their second language, and they revert back to speaking Italian or Portuguese or French or whatever it is, his wife has a translating company, and she does a lot of work with the courts. And so he can find caregivers that's their language. So when they go because it's very frustrating, they're trying to figure out how to say something, but they only can remember it in their native tongue. And so that's the other reason why we love George.
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Nice job.
Excuse me?
So George, discuss the vetting of his staff.
So when he vets his staff, he's interviewing them, doing background checks, doing all of that, and he's the owner. It's not coming from, and the franchises do a great job as well. It's just, we are still in a caregiver crisis. And so that's one of the reasons why we like the AFCs, because we know the caregiver, that ratio is really tight. And when you're having someone coming into your home, he's doing the vetting. It's not a company or anything like that. He's personally doing the vetting of all his caregivers. Yes, that individual that's coming into your home. And the other thing, if you're looking for caregiving, and that's something that I can help you out with as well, I can give you 2 or 3 options. I always feel like it's really good to give 3 options, kind of like house hunters. So you say, I don't like this, but also really interviewing those caregivers, because it's a personality thing too. They might be great caregivers, but if there's an issue with your loved ones that it just doesn't work with that person, then it's not going to work. So that's important as well.
Thank you, Kim. John's going to fetch that question, and while he does, let's go back to Jerry. Jerry, and you touched on this, but what are some of the typical initial home safety modifications which I might implement?
Yeah. Initially, we start off with the basic stuff, which helps people to navigate steps, and things like bathrooms, like I mentioned earlier, was logically the area that the probability of an injury or an occurrence happening. So grab bars, rails, and stair rails are probably externally and internally are the things that would be standard for most homes. We'll make other suggestions about, removing rugs, in hallways. I know everybody loves their rugs, but in reality, they do become a hazard at some point in time. And then even simple things like lighting. Having proper lighting in your home. I don't know, my mom, I go in there, and I don't know if she's conserving energy, but everything's dim all the time. And I first thing I do is I keep telling her, turn the lights on. I mean, her vision is not what it used to be. And I keep reminding her it's just simple to keep the proper lighting, because when she's going down that one little step to the living room area, she's going to miss that step one of these days just because her balance isn't as good as it used to be. And the lighting goes a long way to be able to navigate and see, how she's approaching that step. So yeah, things like that, grab bars for sure, railings internally and externally, and then just doing proper precautionary things around the house.
Thank you, Jerry. As a follow-up,
we do ramps. Yeah, I'm not touching on the full array of things that we do, but anybody who's wheelchair bound or scooter bound and that kind of thing, we do external. We do threshold ramps inside the house to navigate from room to room. Those are real simple things once you're in a wheelchair or on a scooter.
will CAPS remodeling also do exterior, deck, ramp, etc.?
Yeah, we typically don't do just the general decks, but if somebody needs a deck with accessibility with a ramp inclusion, we'll do that. We have the crews that knock the wood or the aluminum ramps out fairly quickly. Obviously, when there's posts involved in cement work, we typically push those into the springtime. But in reality, we have crews out today that were throwing ramps into place, both aluminum ramps and wood ramps. We had two of them actually today we installed, and what kind of day we had weather-wise here, and they were out there doing their thing. Yes.
I have a question.
Thanks.
Can the panel ask a question? do you do, this is a new situation for our family, so I'm going to have to get with you after.
Sure.
But when someone cannot go up and down stairs, the seat that kind of goes up?
Yes, stair chairs.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a couple ways of approaching that. Depends on the stair. There's straight lifts, and we have the curve lifts, which if your staircase has a curve to it, those tend to be custom because we have to have our crew come out and do specific laser measurements to make sure that the flow is properly accounted for when you put it in. So I'll just be honest, the curved stair chairs are custom. They do cost a little more. But a lot of people's homes, they just want to get to the majority of the steps and get to that landing. Yeah. There might be 3 steps that they can navigate up.
Gotcha.
So we do a lot of those installs of just doing the initial 11 steps, and then the last 3 we'll put a railing on both sides so they can use their legs, whatever capacity they have still left in their leg muscles to get up those last couple steps.
Are those installed in a way that they're easily removable at some point? I mean, if you go to sell the home.
Them. Yeah, eventually, sometimes it may involve patching the wood stair, and then the wall we would replace and do the drywall repair too upon that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. And that's what I was just going to say. We will be here. We plan on finishing at maybe 8:20 or so if we go that long. But our panelists will be here. If you have an in-depth personal question that you want addressed, but you don't necessarily want to produce it here, feel free to speak with us individually. We'll be happy to entertain that, at least give you a business card and give you some additional tips. Thank you, Mike. Jerry, I'm going to just go to a follow-up.
Okay.
So let's say that my home is not right here in Rochester. Do you have a network in the event that this residence that I need help with is in the northern Michigan and Traverse City?
We literally cover everywhere from Kalamazoo to Grand Rapids. We go pretty far out, but we've kind of stayed away from the UP because it's tough to get contractors that we're familiar with, and typically we will try to refer you to somebody in the UP or northern part of Michigan. Even in Ohio, we go as far as Toledo, but if somebody has a family member in Cincinnati, we would definitely do a little research. And so it's not a formal network, but just through history of being in this business 15 years, we typically could refer somebody that we have confidence in, that are ADA compliant and have all the proper training to accommodate homes in a professional manner.
Super. So maybe even
no retiring in the UP.
Yeah. That's what that bridge is all about. How about Mike? Question, if you please. Even with a living will, is there still need for an executor?
Good question. Living will, and maybe the question was really related to a will, but I'll address both. So we talked about a living will. A living will is your end-of-life decisions if ever in a coma or vegetative state. I was just having the same conversation with a family earlier today where there's all these terms that are kind of interchangeable, just like powers of attorney have like 5 names that you could refer to the same document. A lot of people still call someone who's in charge of your estate the executor. That's commonly referred to the person who's walking the estate through the probate process, so through court. An executor is under a will and would work with the judge to get the estate administered and transferred to whoever it is the individual wanted it to go to. So the trustee does that job if there's a trust in place and we're avoiding court and that person is wrapping up the estate and handling the affairs. So that's called the trustee. Under a will, it's actually called a personal representative in Michigan, but I would say 99 out of 100 families we work with still call it an executor. So it's okay. We always know what we're talking about. It's essentially the person in charge of wrapping matters up with the estate, but it could be, a trustee under a trust, a personal representative under a will, or as it used to be called, an executor under a will.
So is that the same thing with the living will?
So the living will is...
The living will, you got written down that this is my request, but I'm now in a vegetative state and I can't say yes or no or whatever.
Yeah, good.
Is there still somebody listed as your representative?
Great question. So under the healthcare power of attorney or the financial power of attorney, it is just the agent that you appointed. Typically if there's a spouse, it's spouse first and then order of kids. But they're just referred to the agent under the power of attorney. Good question. And so they'd be, relaying your decisions as far as the living will to doctors or anyone else that needs to know.
So repeat the question.
So the question was, what if someone has a will, but that they signed, but they never had notarized or witnessed? So if a legal document doesn't have what is required to be valid, it is not valid. We can submit it to a judge through the probate process as, okay, here's some evidence of what the person wanted, but it's up to the judge whether they want to follow it or not. If it's something kind of outside of normal, maybe, there's a married couple and the one gives it all to the neighbor, that's never going to stand up. If it's just maybe there's a different percentages that you want to leave your kids instead of everything equally, you split it up a little bit differently, well, that's a different story. But you want to make sure that you have, if it's a will, you've got witnesses, notarization. You want to make sure that everything is done according to the law for it to be valid and upheld. Good question.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Belinda?
Yes.
What factors might I consider when deciding which Medicare plan is best for me?
Well, like I said, sorry. Like I said earlier, I think it's really personal preference, but mainly based on number 1, your health, and number 2, your finances, what you can afford. So I personally show people 3 different ways they can take their Medicare and leave it up to them. And by the end of the conversation, I think people know what's best for them based on everything we talk about, what different plans cover, what co-pays people might have to pay for those services. It's very individual, but we can help you, educate you about what is out there, because we certainly don't want somebody who's getting ready to turn 65, who has an array of health issues, to go with a plan where they're not going to be covered fully in cases of dialysis or in cases where a person might have cancer and need chemotherapy. you would definitely want to talk to somebody who's educated about Medicare to help you navigate making the right choice. Does that answer the question? Would you like me to be more specific?
Belinda, can you also go over the drug coverage? Because some people are not, they don't really have a lot of drugs that they're not on, but you talked about a window. Can you cover that a little bit more?
Right. When you turn 65, if you're going to elect your Medicare Part A and B, then you also need to pick up a Part D prescription drug plan. And a lot of people will say, I don't need a plan, I don't take prescription medication. But the problem is if you don't take it when you're 65 and first eligible, you will pay a penalty for every month that you go without coverage. And if you go without it for a year, it'll be a small penalty. But if it gets to be 5 or 10 years and times 2 people, then it becomes unaffordable for many people to pick up a drug plan when they're 75 and now they really need it. So there are inexpensive plans that we can show people who are 65 who do not take prescription medications. Inexpensive plans, I mean $7 a month to $13 a month. That way you're covered, you don't have your penalty, and you have that coverage if you need it for the future. What else can I tell you about that? Oh, if you continue to work at 65 and you have credible coverage with your employer, you do not have to pick up a prescription drug plan at 65 if you have credible coverage. You do not have to pick up your Part B of Medicare. Many people make that mistake. They think that they'll be penalized for the Part B and the Part D if they don't get it right at 65. That is not true. As long as you're covered and you have credible coverage, meaning as good or better than Medicare through your employer, you can delay Part B and D until you leave your credible coverage. Generally, you have 6 months.
Thank you. Is there a question card or a follow-up question? Okay.
Yes. Most of the Medicare...
Can you repeat the question?
If one is on Medicare Advantage, does one have to include D, David? Or drug?
Prescription drug coverage. Most of the Medicare Advantage plans combine Part A, B, and D into one plan. However, there are just Medicare Advantage plans without prescription drugs, which are very popular with veterans who opt to get their prescription drugs through the VA. They have great plans out there for people who want to go the VA route, but still have some medical coverage, some prescription, or not prescription drug coverage, medical coverage that's close by in case they don't want to go to the VA clinic or hospital.
Thanks, Belinda. Kim, might you address, is your service similar to A Place for Mom?
It is. So the difference between us and A Place for Mom is we are privately owned and we lock arms with you. That's kind of my phrase, and we used it with Navigate Home. So I'll give you an example. My husband he can fix almost anything. So he goes to one hardware store and they do a point and shoot. They say it's in aisle 3 on shelf B, the little widget's there. He goes over to get the little widget and it's not there and there's no one to ask a question. He goes to a next hardware store and they say, come on, Jeff, let's go and see what this little widget is. And so they take him to aisle B and look down the shelf, and it's not quite the widget that they need, and so they suggest another widget. So with Next Step for Seniors, we go on tours with you. We give you all kinds of information, and we don't just give out your email address and your phone number. None of that is given until you give that community a permission. Once you give it to some place, like a Place for Mom, then that is their information, and they can call you, and you will be on a list. Even after your loved one is passed, you will still continue to get those calls, and you will still continue to get that information. So we are tailored totally different. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Kim. And a little bit of a tag on that. Can you address the expense of assisted living and whether or not that can only be private pay, or are there other options other than private pay?
So that's an excellent question. So assisted living is totally dependent on how the community addresses the care. So the assisted living for your rent and for your, room and board, let's just put it that way, is, $2,000, $2,500 average. You can get a little bit less and it can go a little bit more, but average is the $2,000 mark. If there needs to be care, there's level of care. Some communities have 3 levels, some have 5 levels, some go up to 8 levels. So it could be, let's just say you just need medication, med management we call it, and they just need to have medication. Is it 2 times a day, 3 times a day? Do they have to have a blood sugar, so an insulin slide? So those are all in the equation of how much it costs for that care. And then if there has to be shower assist, someone just stand by shower. All those kind of things are a point system for some communities or just levels on another community. So no matter where you go in assisted living, you will always get an assessment. There'll be a nurse coming in to give you an assessment so that you can see kind of what that range of care would be. In memory care, typically it's all inclusive. So you pay one price and all the care is inclusive. It doesn't matter if they need more care as they go on. Typically, all communities have their own little thing, but that's the typical way of how the communities are doing that currently. And memory care right now, the average cost is around $5,000 to $6,000 a month. So if you're going into an AFC, again, I'm a big proponent of AFCs, that kind of care can be, you're paying, I would say, significantly less because it's an all-inclusive one price. So typically those are all private pay unless you're a veteran and you can get veterans benefits for that. Or if you have long-term care insurance, that long-term care insurance would kick in. And then if you are on Medicaid, that does not count for a community. That would be more of what we call skilled or nursing home, as some people call it still. And that you have to qualify by income and by health. That doesn't necessarily mean if you're really the income is so super hard because so many people fall between the cracks. So let's just say your income is at $37,000 and the income level comes in at $3,600 where they qualify for Medicaid. I don't know what those numbers are. I don't know if someone knows those numbers, but it's close within that range. So they count to the penny. So if you're off by, $50 to $100, you will not qualify. Now, there's other ways of working some of that, and I'm not an attorney. That would be a question for Mike. Yeah. And I think Jeff.
Thank you. I was going to take it down. Jeff, could you come take care of the ghost in the room, please? Thank you. So this evening, we are lucky enough to have had our question runner. And John, I'm going to give you the microphone. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what options you have for these good folks.
Well, thank you guys all for coming tonight. So after you've made your way through all of these people up here, kind of make your way to what I do, I work with a local hospice company. It's called Accent Care, Hospice and Palliative Care, formerly known as Seasons Hospice. We were Seasons Hospice for the past 15 years, but we were just acquired by a home care company. So we still operate the same great staff, same staff working out in the community. So I work with a lot of the senior livings in the area of Rochester and Shelby Township, and I am like a liaison, you can call me. So I get when I know Kim reaches out to me frequently when she has a family in need of extra support as we're reaching end of life. So I know there's a lot of misconceptions with that scary H word, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're in the final hours or days, which unfortunately a lot of people have an experience like that, where it's just the final days that hospice comes in and medications are taken away and they just push morphine. A lot of times I've seen people on hospice as long as 2 years. So when you're navigating a terminal illness like maybe heart failure or kidney failure, cancer, COPD, when you get to the point where you're maybe in and out of the hospital, you're calling your primary care doctors, your specialty doctors, and you just don't feel like you're making a lot of progress, that's when hospice can kind of step in and provide a whole team of caregivers and just help navigate your the end of life process, really. So, and it's not just help for the patient. You know, the biggest thing is to get symptoms and pain controlled, but it's a huge support for the family. I mean, we have all the way down from a physician all the way down to certified nursing assistants and volunteers. So we really approach all needs of the patients and the families. And we work in the home setting, we work in assisted livings and nursing homes, kind of like Kim was mentioning. And it's a service that's completely covered by Medicare, which I'm sure you know. So that's one nice thing is all of these assisted livings and nursing homes, it costs a lot of money, but hospice care it's a benefit that everyone's entitled to. So,
John, can you address the difference between hospice and palliative care?
Yeah. So palliative care is a step before hospice. It's a Part B benefit through your insurance. And with palliative care, patients are still continuing a curative type route. So let's say someone has kidney failure and they still want to pursue dialysis, which is considered curative. You can still continue dialysis, but let's say that you have symptoms or pain arising still that need management. Palliative care is nurse practitioner driven, and it's a nurse practitioner who makes a visit periodically, let's say once a week. And that nurse practitioner is just taking a look at your care as a whole and just trying to help manage those symptoms and pain that are arising while you're still pursuing that curative route. Same thing with cancer. If you're still considering pursuing chemo or radiation, a lot of times there's pain and discomfort that comes along with that. So palliative care, again, the nurse practitioner takes a look at the whole picture and just tries to help manage that pain while you're pursuing the curative measures. So. So yeah, hospice is the next step. So hospice is a Part A benefit through your Medicare. So similar to a hospitalization, that's a Part A benefit. Going to rehab, maybe after you broke your hip, that's a Part A benefit. So it encompasses the care. Whereas palliative care is like a consult service. So palliative care, it's like maybe seeing a podiatrist or many other consult services like that. So it's just a temporary thing. So with hospice, though, you just get a lot more services to you. The biggest thing being 24/7 care. There's not someone there providing care 24/7, but we're available 24/7. Kind of like a 911 that comes to you rather than you having to go out in the ambulance and to the hospital. So, yeah.
Can you talk one more thing about like your music therapy and things that people don't understand that can really be comforting to your loved ones and to the family?
Yeah. So again, like I said, hospice is more than just, narcotics and morphine. I mean, we like to take a more holistic approach to pain as well. So one unique thing that we offer that no other hospices really offer that I've seen is a music therapy program. So we do have a board certified music therapists, and they just see patients and try to help with anxiety or agitation with the use of music. I've seen it firsthand in one of our inpatient centers. Sometimes patients with dementia in the advanced stages, they have a lot of agitation. They're just anxious. They're very jittery. Our music therapist can come in and play a song to their elevated heart rate, and they can slow the song down, and it slows someone's heart rate down. So they do really wonderful things like that. And they're not just at our inpatient centers. We're out in homes mostly, actually, and in these assisted livings and nursing homes. So.
Thanks for that insight, John.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming up here. So a couple of questions have come up, and one, Xenia, if you might address this for us. Tell us a little bit about long-term care and the individual for whom that is a good product. Do we need it?
Do we need it? So I can't say that everybody needs long-term care insurance as much as I can say everyone should be cognizant of the risk and the cost involved. And really, so there's two aspects of it. So when we look at the financial aspect, and we actually briefly touched across the board, long-term care for rehabilitation and actual medical needs, I believe, is covered. But if it's more of, your activities of daily living, being unable to complete, usually it's 2 of 6, or memory care, Alzheimer's, that is generally something that will be paid for out of pocket unless you don't have the resources anymore, then Medicaid kicks in. So we look at it from 3 ways. There's the ability to self-insure, where you have enough assets to really comfortably be able to pay for the possible risk. So risk is generally 1 in 3, chance of, I think, spending 6 months or longer in some sort of facility. So looking at the cost involved, and I think in the area it's a little bit higher depending on the need, but even at $6,000 a month, that could add up. So do we self-insure, or do we fully insure the risk through an insurance product of some sort, or meet in the middle? I don't want to, maybe show of hands, anyone who has known someone who has had a need for long-term care, who has been in a nursing home or assisted living. I don't know if I've met anybody that really hasn't, whether directly or indirectly. And unfortunately, in the 25 years I've been doing this, because I started when I was 8, I've seen it quite often, and it can be devastating. So again, understanding the risk, how does it impact you financially? And fortunately, a lot of these long-term care policies have evolved. They're not the insurance companies, doctors, has to be in a qualified nursing facility. They've evolved even to where you can have in-home care. Your doctor signs off on it. So it's definitely something to research. But taking that, so if we advise at a financial level, there's still that personal level of concern. My husband and I are in the same boat financially. Of course, we're together, but if you ask our opinion on insurance, do we need it or not? I'm more likely to say yes. No, we don't. So because of, second step, can you sleep at night? What are your personal goals? How do we make sure that you're comfortable with the risk that you're taking? And, so actually, Mike, I don't think we planned this, but one of the things that we will call Mike in, because if you have a significant amount of assets, or assets that you want to protect for your loved ones, there's trust that actually can avoid or not be included in the calculation if Medicaid were to be need to be taken. So short story long, there's a lot of options and a lot of considerations to be taken. It's not, fortunately or unfortunately, it's not one size fits all, but there are a lot of recent resources out there that are much more lucrative or attractive to buyers.
Lots of moving parts.
Yes.
I'm watching the clock because we are time sensitive. However, would you take the microphone back and address to this group, because there was a community outreach project which Navigate Home spearheaded over the December holiday timeframe. And that was really spearheaded mainly by you. Tell us a little bit about what Navigate Home did for community outreach.
So actually, we created what was called a hug and a mug. And we were able to deliver to local residents. So people would go onto the website, sign up for this hug and a mug to be delivered to a loved one, whether they were shut in or just they haven't seen them in a while, or just because I'm thinking of you. So they received a mug with a little hot cocoa on a stick, some other little things, but most importantly, a personalized handwritten message from that loved one. So I was able to go out. We think we had 61 deliveries. They were delayed a little bit, but I went out on the 23rd and 24th, and I think I got more out of it, especially with the holidays, and I think some of these recipients, because it was just a wonderful feeling to see some of these seniors shut-ins. I went to several nursing homes. Most I couldn't get past the front door, but the couple that I went to their room, they were incredibly grateful. So it was very uplifting. I loved it. I can't wait for our next one, which I'm sure is right around the corner. We've been kind of bouncing some ideas back and forth, so please, look out for that. And it was at no cost to be delivered. So, yeah. Due to Jerry and Keps.
Jerry
support.
covered the expense for those, and thank you for doing that,
Thank you, Jerry.
So we would be remiss to not thank the Rochester Hills Public Library for the opportunity to hold our meeting here this evening. We are going to have a drawing, and is it a blind drawing?
It's a blind drawing. It is for a $50 gift card to Whole Foods. We'll buy a lot of wine.
Whole Foods vegetables.
Yes, good fruits, right? All right, go ahead.
Okay, I'm blind. Okay, and the lucky recipient is ticket number, if you have your tickets available for reference, 438-138. Do I have a bingo?
And this was a generous donation by George Rochette from the Worldwide Home Health Care. And as we are leaving, we would like your surveys, and because we appreciate your feedback this evening so we can continue to offer great programs. Thanks again to Rochester Hills Public Library. We'd love to come back again and be informative. Weren't these guys great panelists? And that's what Kim and I, this has been a labor of love for us to provide this type of information to you all. And I don't think we've mentioned it at least more than once, so I am going to mention it again. Visit our website, navigatehomepros.org, and that's where what Connie was mentioning with the knowledge areas. It has everybody's their biography information, how to reach out to them, and we're building a library of information. So if there was a video that one of us put together that you can look into, like for instance, Mike Rakowski talking about power of attorney, those type of information are on our website as well. So thank you again.
Is there another drawing?
Did you want to do the calendars?
No, those are just gifts. I thought I brought those. I am from WIMS Insurance Agency, and I don't know that I mentioned that. Did I mention that? So that's who I am. Please, for those of you that are going to exit and don't have further questions for the panel, we have swag bags if you would take those with you upon your exit. Thank you for coming this evening. Please do leave your survey forms at the back table where you registered. And thank you for coming this evening. We do appreciate it. There were a couple of questions that I believe are better voiced directly to a couple of panelists. So if you might, on those two questions that were not addressed this evening, speak to the panel member directly, we would appreciate it.
I'll just add one more thing. So Robin is going to be passing out the bags for the swag bags. So there's a lot of purging that has to be done when we accumulate our things, as I can see people putting their hands around each other. And we have to organize that and give a gift to our children and our loved ones, not to deal with all the stuff. Jeff and I just had to do that recently, and it really is a gift if you pull that together. So on our team, we do have a home organizer that can help you through that process. And I would just encourage everyone to really look at all their stuff. Honey, even the garage. Thank you.
Like a true gentleman. All right.
Thank you, Connie, for being our MC.